Hello everyone. Today is going to be the third talk that I'm giving in a series of 4 talks on the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse are found in Revelation 6. We've talked about 2 of them already, and our premise is that since we are living in the end times, that we ought to be able to look in Revelation, which is a book about the end times, and discover around us in the world today what forces it describes in Revelation as forces that would be around just before the second coming of Christ. We've identified 2 of those forces in our previous 2 talks. The first force was the pale green horse, which we identified as Islam. The second talk was on the black horse, which we identified as the banking cabal, or those world leaders and rulers who are in control of the world monetary system and who are largely responsible for a lot of the poverty, suffering, hunger, starvation, and theft of money that is going on in the world today. Today we want to talk about a third force, which Revelation describes as the red horse. I want to identify the red horse for you and just talk a little bit about it so that you can understand what the red horse is and what it's doing in the world today. Now let me read the passage from Scripture which describes the force which is known as the red horse. This is from Revelation 6:3. When the Lamb opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature say, "Come." Then another horse came out, a fiery red one. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make men slay each other. To him was given a large sword. Okay, so if we look at this, it says that the color of the horse was red. Its rider was given power to take peace from the earth and to make men slay each other. So this rider is responsible for a lot of the wars, for a lot of the killing and murders of men that are occurring and have occurred. And the sword is a large one, which means that many, many, many people will be murdered and killed by this force. Now, if we look back on the 20th century, we can see right from the beginning of the 20th century, there started out to be a lot of mass murders. And at the beginning of the century, the mass murders were largely centered in Russia. When the communists came to power, they were very brutal and they just started killing anybody that opposed them, anybody of the Russian people. And they murdered millions and millions of Russians, some who opposed them and some who they were just paranoid of, starting with Lenin and reaching a peak with Stalin, but even continuing on after that. We can see these mass murders of millions of people. If we look at China, we can see basically later on after World War II, as the communists took over, we see the same pattern of radical communists taking over and murdering all their real and imagined opponents into the millions of people. And continuing this day, these murders are occurring in China. And we can see in a lot of other radical communistic regimes the same pattern of mass murders of their own people. Say, for instance, in North Korea and other places around the world. communists are responsible for the murders of millions and millions of people. Now, also, in the middle of the 20th century, early to middle 20th century, we see the rise of Nazism. Now, most people don't realize it, but Nazism is actually radical socialism. They didn't like the communists in Russia, but even so, ideologically, they're on the same platform, a platform of radical socialism, the government takeover of all government industries, and the suppression of the people to the point of murdering their own people, anyone who disagreed with them. And it's easily seen in the actual name of the Nazi Party, which was the National Socialist Party, that they were in fact radical socialists. Now, when I was growing up, we always identified the communists with the red color. And even today they're identified with the red color because their flags are red mainly. The communist flags in Russia and China, North Korea are red flags. We used to call the Chinese the red Chinese and communist reds. If you look at the Nazi flag, it's red and black. So I don't think it's too much of a stretch to be able to identify radical communism, radical socialism as the force that Revelation is talking about here. And then when you look at the murders and the wars these people have started and the murders they've committed, you can see that the Bible is spot on, dead accurate on what this force will be like. So I just wanted to show you this picture I took off the Bible, not off the Bible, off the internet. It's just a picture of the Red Horseman that I found on there, and it's, I don't know, I would say that lettering, I don't know what it is, it might be Arabic or something, I don't know what this says. But you see the Red Horseman, the rider on the Red Horseman, and then you see right down here in this corner on the left side, you see the hammer and sickle, which is one of the symbols of radical communism and radical socialism. So that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this particular rider. I think it's easy to see and easily identified that this rider represents radical socialist communism, and that this is another force, the third force, that is going to be apparent and recognizable as a force that occurs in the end times, which is right now. Thanks for listening.